Good afternoon, everybody. It's myself and Imran. We haven't done this for a little while, but with the imminent release of various different features with Elementor and some of the new changes, I kind of thought it'd be a good time to have a chat from someone that's more bricks orientated to someone that's more Elementor orientated, and kind of just have a chat about all the different things that we saw in that live webinar yesterday. But before we do, Imran, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I've been working really hard on, obviously I always am, and I'm just chucking videos out. But yeah, 2025 so far has started off with a really good bang. Things are going really, really well, so I just hope it lasts. But yeah, I'm great, Paul.
I'm sure it will last. I'm sure it will last. So, just to kind of recap, anybody that, hey, Dave, how you doing? Anybody that sort of didn't catch yesterday's sort of live stream is broken down into your typical look back at what's happened over the last year or so. But I think probably for myself and for Imran, there were two key things in there that I think we were probably most interested in. The first being the sort of the new wireframing, site design kind of thing. Imran, you might want to turn up a little bit. And also the sort of obviously bringing in the global classes, which we've had in Bricks for quite some time, and something that I talk about a lot in the various different sort of live streams and videos and things I do. So we're going to break this live stream down into two parts. First of all, we're going to talk about the site planner, our thoughts on it. I've tested it. Imran's tested it. We've both released separate videos on it with our thoughts and feelings and experiences. Then the second half, we're going to talk a little bit about the whole sort of global classes, what implications we think that has and how we may see it being implemented and so on. But as always, if you've got questions during the live stream, by all means, put a hashtag Q for question or the word hashtag question, and we'll do our very best then to answer them as we go along. But just to sort of say thank you, everybody, for joining in. I can see a couple of very famous faces in the house today. So thank you very much for joining us. But Imran, I mean, you released your video yesterday on the site planner. I released mine today. So let's grab your initial thoughts from your, I'm assuming probably brief testing like myself, you run through it a couple of times, get a feel for it and put some content together. But what were your initial thoughts on it?
From the get-go, I think it's a nice addition, and it satisfies a basic brief of trying to just get a wireframe together where you might not entirely know what you want to build, or you're trying to convince a potential client to sign up for you. By the way, please let me know if the sound is a little bit better if you can in the comments. So if you've got like a proposal and your client is going around getting quotes and you have an idea that they're a landscaper, you could go in and just pop in some words, and it's going to give you a bit of a structure, and you could drop that in an email like screenshots just to show a client, hey, look, I'm thinking of you. In terms of the output, it is basic, and I think I went in with a mindset of I'm not expecting anything groundbreaking. And that's not because it's built by Elementor, but because I could see that this was not a premium tool. Like, you get it free as part of Elementor.com. So there's no subscription model, and I had a feeling that this is just going to stick templates together. So it is basic in terms of what you can do, you know, if you compare to other tools. But could I see myself using it for clients, like just to get over to them a wireframe? Because you know me, I like to scribble on paper. So this is like a step up from scribbling for me. So I can see it being good. There are limitations, and I'm sure we'll talk about them. But from a basic point of view, in fact, I'll say now, there's a lot of web designers that have never ever considered doing Canva wireframes or Figma wireframes or Adobe or nothing like that. So this is like a step in the right direction for them. And if they decide, you know what, I want it to do more, then they've got other tools they can go over and subscribe to whatever. So for something that you get for free as part of your Elementor account, I thought it was decent, pretty good.
Okay, good starting point, basically. I will say that the biggest thing that I took away from it, from my testing this morning and a little bit last night, was that I've used, and I like Reloom, and we've talked about this before. And if anybody doesn't know, Reloom is basically what the Elementor site planner is, but more. It does more. It is a premium product, so you are paying for it. It's more mature, so it's going to be a more stable platform with additional features. The thing that really frustrates me with the direction that they're going, and we've already talked about this in the past, myself, you have, Jeffrey and a lot of other people, is the AI route. Now, I don't see any problem with using AI, in the right scenarios. But what I did kind of struggle with, one of the key points that I took away and put into my video from this morning was when you use that to create a design, you want to change that design, you have to have the AI kind of redo it. So you have a section and you go, I don't like the look of that hero section, I want something different. So you hit the sort of, let's say, the spin the wheel kind of thing, spin the AI wheel, and then you get another example. Well, to me, that kind of sounds a little bit too limiting. If you look at Reloom, for example, you can have that generate the sitemap, generate the wireframe, and then you can say, the hero section, I want to take a look at like 100 designs that you've got there that are pre-built, because most designs or most websites follow a very similar structure. What the design afterwards ends up like is different, but the wireframing process is very much the same. With this, it's a one-shot. Whereas with Reloom, you can go, I want a hero section, but I know the exact type of hero section that I want to put in, and I'm going to go and search for one that matches close to that, put it in there, and then I'm going to use AI to do the text or the other bits and pieces. With AI, and as we talked about quick before we came on camera, is that you don't have any history there. So what you get doesn't kind of consider what you got last time, what you didn't like, and so on and so forth. You can't train that AI. I would love to see a hybrid approach where you've got hit the AI, have a little bit of sort of spin the wheel, see what you kind of come up with. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But also give me, there's a bunch of designs for typical hero sections, typical call to action sections, and so on. Let me put those in there and then move on with the AI side of things. Was there anything sort of particular that you kind of looked at and you kind of felt the same? It's like, oh, that's just missing a trick. That's a limiting factor.
Yeah, there are quite a few. So if you go from a basic point of view in terms of just generating what it generates and then exporting over to Elementor and then doing the nitty gritty there, it can work really well. However, there's no real machine learning going on in there.
No.
So I tested it with 3 examples, and I noticed that each time it churned out a website, they were all very different. So it's not learning from my style or my voice or my prompting at the moment. That could happen in time. There's limitations with, let's say you generate a 5-page website and you go, oh, I like what it's done on the homepage, but I want the services page to look the same because they all looked very different. You can't drag a section over. You can change the wording in the sitemap, but then when you generate, it's going to generate something very different. So I feel like, compared to premium tools in terms of AI learning, copy pasting, I would love to see them coming on. Another thing, I picked up on this. I actually had a meeting with them on Sunday. So I looked at it previously and I did mention this to them. And I don't know if I'm saying too much, but this will be coming out soon. Is that I said, it's great that it's done all this, but I want to pop my own logo in. I want to pop my fonts in, my colors in. I don't just want a grayscale wireframe, because I'm trying to convince a client. I'm not going to tell the client it's an AI tool, but I want to convince them that, look at this, I've gone and generated this for you. So I do think things like that are coming on. Yeah, I don't know if I think I covered everything with the limitations. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a beta product. We do know that. So we are going to see limitations. And, it's not for everybody. It's not something that everybody would use. But the other thing, the other assumption I took away from it is because the third tab, which is for the design, is currently not there yet. Yeah, it's like, keep your eyes peeled. This is going to be coming. I don't know if you kind of thought the same thing. It's like, I think they're holding that back until they've got the global classes come out. Because otherwise, it's just going to be slightly redundant in how it works.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there is some bits. I think it's going to evolve over time. Something I did forget to mention, though, one of the big benefits, because I have noticed someone's mentioned ZipWP, because a lot of these other products, when they do generate a website, most of them, if you export it into WordPress, are going to be your WordPress blocks or your Gutenbergs or whatever, your classic editor. the one neat thing about this, if you're using Elementor, is that they are Elementor containers in a way.
Yes.
So when you do now start to go, well, it's given me a hero banner with 2 children and an image and text, and I don't want that, it shouldn't take you long to modify or strip out and drop in your own template or whatever. So the benefits of doing that are pretty good, I think, from that point of view. So for me, that was a big win compared to other AI tools where, I mean, when ZipWP first came out, by the way, if Adam or ZipWP is watching, don't take this as a criticism, but I tried it out and I was like, oh, okay, pretty standard, blocky, whatever. And then you literally feel like you're redesigning it all from scratch again if you then start to do it with Elementor or bricks or anything else. So duplication of effort.
I will be brutally honest and say that I tried it probably about 6 months ago, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by the results. I tried it like about not long after it was released, and much the same as yourself there, you just kind of felt like these are just taking Astra templates and Astra blocks or sort of whatever it is, and just taking those, changing the images, using the AI to put some images in there, put some text in there, but you are just taking pre-built blocks and dumping them onto the page in a random-ish order, kind of defined a little bit by AI. But it has improved, and some of the results I saw was actually a lot better than I was anticipating. Would you use them straight out the box? Probably not. But I kind of guess you've got to look at the kind of people that these types of tools are aimed at. You know, is it aimed at your web design company, your freelancer, your agencies? You know, I would argue probably not in most cases. They're probably going to have their own dedicated workflow, maybe their own dedicated libraries. And it obviously, you know, the big key difference here between something like Reloom is kind of geared towards you put it all together and then you put it into Figma and then you take it from Figma, expand it, and then do what you want in whatever tool you want to build, whereas this is definitely Elementor focused. But the other thing I noticed, I don't know how far you took it in your video, because like I say, I specifically didn't watch anybody's video on this yesterday and today until I got my own video out, that when you export that kit, the design kit, you then take that into your website. I kind of found that the process there fell apart a little bit and there was a lot of assumptions. So if it was geared towards people that are completely new and they're thinking, you know, your typical sort of Squarespace user that wants to do something and have a bit more control, then when they moved into WordPress, Hello Theme wasn't installed. Various different settings when you installed the Hello Theme were disabled by default. So your layout had the title of the page in between the navigation, and the navigation was a bit messed up. And then, you know, and again, I'm appreciative of the fact it's a beta product, and I wasn't not trying to be hard on what it does, but these are things that I can think these would be pain points for users that are not necessarily that comfortable or au fait with WordPress, web design, Elementor in general, using maybe the Hello Theme, or even knowing they need to use the Hello Theme to get it to work, because by default, it was in Gutenberg, which meant that it was this wide, and you're looking at it going, well, that's not what I was expecting, you know, and if you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd be like, well, that looks nothing like my wireframe there, and I've imported it into Elementor, why does it look like that? So these are things yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I in my video I mention in there you must use hello. What no one saw, because I edited it out, was exactly that. I imported it and I was like, what's going on here? And I started scratching my head thinking, right, what's wrong with the website? And then I went back to regenerate again, and then my brain clicked. I went, oh, I haven't, because it was a fresh WordPress installation, it still had 2025 on there.
Yep.
So yeah, you got to use hello. And I have mentioned to the team there's a few things they need to make clear, because if you go and hit publish, I can't remember what it was now. Was it, I don't know if it was generate or publish, one of those buttons, you get a pop-up that says you need to use Elementor hosting. And I remember sitting there going, does that mean I can't use this now? And then I realized I can export. And I have said to them, when you hit that, I get why you're doing it from an upsell marketing point of view, but you need to make clear that if you want this website, you must now export, because if you people who aren't used to the import and export of template kits and Hello Theme, like you said, they're not going to get it, and they could feel very, very lost. So I think, you know, it's just come out. and I'm sure they're getting feedback from other people. But yeah, that whole thing that you do have to use hello. That was a funny moment when my brain did click and realise, oh yeah, of course you would. But like you said, fresh WordPress installation, you would have assumed that maybe it. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, but can a template kit automatically install hello for you?
Well, if it can, it doesn't with this method. I mean,
it doesn't do it, but yeah.
No. To me, again, like I say, I think we're both on the same page here. That you do kind of you are being understanding of the fact that it is a beta product.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it would be if we've immediately gone and identified, there's this pain point right there between using the wireframing side of things and actually putting that onto your site as a design kit. Surely some people inside Elementor, some people that have beta tested this before or alpha tested this before we got our hands in it and it was publicly available, would have gone, you need to put something there, even if it's a pop-up that says you need to do these. Here's a checklist or here's a video of what needs to be done next. So it takes away that pain point. And as Dave says...
come on, Paul. Come on, Paul. At some point, someone probably went, Elementor notes, best thing ever. We've got to get it out there. So, I'll be like, I'll be kind and say that they have ways of testing, but I feel like once it gets into our hands, we're the voice of reason. And we're not looking for bugs. We're not trying to break it. We're just following the flow of like a normal person who's not an expert. What steps would they take? It could be confusing for some of them. Yeah, I'm sure they'll improve it.
I'm sure they will. But yeah, my New Year's resolution this year was to be more positive. So I'm avoiding saying things that maybe would come across as negative. But like I get it. I get it. I
can't be positive. Every time I see one of Matt Mullenweg's tweets, I lose it for about half an hour. I go, what? But let's not talk about that.
That's one of the key reasons why I try not to go down that rabbit hole every single day, because before Christmas, I did go down that rabbit hole, and my God, it drives you insane. But yeah.
Oh,
yeah, okay. So what we're saying is then a C for effort, basically. Will we agree?
I'd give him a B+. I would give him a B+. I would say that if you want more, and you want more AI and all of that, then you got to invest in the better tools. You got to invest in the better tools. It's like video editing. You can use free stuff, but if you want more, if you want the juicy stuff that's been like really well established, you're going to have to invest. But I mean, I don't know how long they've been working on this, because that site planner, it kind of came out of nowhere. Even when I first heard about it, like a week or a bit ago, it was a bit like, oh, where's this come from, kind of thing. So, yeah, I'll give it a B+.
Very, very generous of you, but with a little footnote: must try harder. A for effort, C for execution.
Yeah.
No, I think the biggest. No, go on.
Sorry, what I was going to say, though, is one thing I would like to see, though, is that in some ways, I wasn't a massive fan of the fact that, if you were building your website and you've got your WordPress and you've got your Elementor Pro licenses on the WordPress and all of that, I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that I have to go to elementor.com. And when I do it there, I feel like I'm a little bit detached. And if there was a way that you could somehow go to your WordPress website and then access it within there somehow, that would then save the need to maybe export and import. Maybe, I don't know, that would make it more seamless.
Yeah, I'm sure that there will be a sort of smoother integration when it kind of comes out of beta. But we as with most things, we don't know what their kind of thought process is, what their direction they're trying to do is, and those kinds of things. So it'll be interesting to see. I do again have to question why sometimes. I get it that it's a useful tool for some, but when that market is already catered for, is it really adding anything? And I would be surprised if it stays completely free. It might have a low tier, sort of like you can do 5 sites a month or something. I'd be surprised.
I really hope they don't. I really hope this isn't a, gain interest and then we charge for it. But I really hope it does say free. But Key's question, or Case, sorry. I keep saying Keys, but it's Case. His question is a really, really good one, especially with all the drama. And I know we're not here to talk about Matt Mullenweg, but the noise for the last 5-6 days has been, well, he could switch it off at any time. And, oh my God, the amount of drama that would happen if that ever did happen. And I do wonder, could Elementor be one of those page builders that have already started thinking about a closed infrastructure or something of some sort where they could still exist? Just make you wonder.
I would be surprised if that conversation hasn't been taking place for several years. I would really be surprised, because as they're building their empire, because if you look at it, that's what they're doing. They're looking to be a one-stop for all aspects, from ideation through to creation to hosting to security to all those kinds of things. You can't help but think, well, what's one of the weakest links in that entire chain? Reliance upon WordPress. Brizzy had the right idea and think of sort of taking away from, they've got their plugin, but if that went away, they've also got cloud. Whether you like it or not, or whether you whatever the case is, I do think you'd be crazy to not be considering that and look at it. What are the viable options for being able to make that a reality? And from a financial point of view as well, you have the walled garden that you have with Apple. Love it or loathe it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an Apple user, I'm an Apple user, and I'm coming from like 30 years of PC ownership, building PCs and all those kind of things. Would I go back to a PC? No, because the simplicity you have of having all those pieces connected to each other and the ease of use. So you're on your phone, I just want to carry on browsing on my laptop or whatever. And you can't tell me that that's not something that they look at thinking we need complete control over every stage of the entire design process, from, like I say, from ideation to hosting and everything beyond.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, on the talk about PC and Mac, my son has a PC for gaming, and I hate it whenever there's a problem. I feel like I'm going back in time. I have to go to the file manager. I hate it.
I've still got a PC. I've still got one upstairs in my what's now my partner's office. So it's used once in a while to do like specific things that I can't do on a Mac. But it is just one of those weird. No, don't go there. It is one of those weird things, though.
Yes.
Don't go there. Eugene, just wait for Matt demands 8% revenue from Elementor hosting. No, they're not going to do that, because they dedicated at least 5 minutes yesterday of their live stream to supporting and what they do to support. Yes, contributions. So I would imagine they're probably very, very, loved by Matt today. Tomorrow could all change. Who knows? Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the second topic of what I want to talk about today, which is, for me, the bigger topic, and something that I know that we've talked about on screen and off screen a lot, which is the global classes and bringing in a class-based design system into Elementor. Now, I know that you did a video today. Again, I haven't seen it yet. It'll be up to my eyes today. But you did a video on kind of dissecting what you could see on the screen in the background when they were going to the webinar yesterday. So what's your professional opinion about... Well, first of all, are you happy to see global classes actually making their way into Elementor?
Absolutely. It was like when I first started looking at bricks, I was blown away by how much more efficient I could be at building websites, adding in codes, or just assigning dedicated headers or styles to buttons or forms or anything I wanted, and just summon them and modify them whenever I wanted. It was so simple and easy. Once you knew how to do it, it was so much more efficient. And then I remember going back to Elementor and going, why has this not got this? Why have they not gone down this road? And all the talk was, well, you'd have to completely redesign Elementor. Completely brand new version. And I was like, oh, crap, don't want to go down there. So if this can be added on, this is a big win for Elementor. It doesn't mean, I mean, we haven't seen it yet. It doesn't mean it will be good as other page builders. It could be. It could even be better. But if it gives us that facility to be more efficient and to be able to now start thinking in a more... basically, it's all about thinking methodically, right? Now you're not just going to be dropping in a button and styling. Now you're thinking about, I'm going to have 5 buttons. This is my hero banner button. This is my other button. This is my whatever. And you now start to... you start to apply more consistency in what you're building, and I think it's about bloody time. We heard about it in January 2023. We had a full 2 years of radio silence on it. Nothing. Every time I tried to push for it, it was like, nothing was being said. So for us to now have it in 2025, in Q2, whenever that exactly is. Because I've said, is that the financial year or the calendar year? So is it actually going to be way down in September if it's the financial year? So I hope it's not. But I think this is a really, really good move. I can't wait to see it. The screenshots, if the video I did today, I took their screenshots of each of their little things and dissected them. It's moving in the right direction. I don't want to make comparisons to Bricks Builder or anything like that, but when I look at it, it looks to me to be very similar in like how you would create a class, name it, pick your styles, and you got all your pseudo classes and stuff like that. So I'm optimistic, but until we get to play with it, we're just making assumptions at the moment. Yeah, sorry, that was the classes.
No, the funny thing is, I think RT kind of just encapsulated exactly what I was going to say, which is one of the big things, and this was the first thing that kind of hit me with regards to all this, was that the big criticism you kind of get about being an Elementor user versus being, looking at Bricks. For Bricks, you need to be a developer. You need to have this sort of developer mindset. And I would agree that you need to have, or you would benefit from having that mindset. You don't need to, you just benefit from it. Because, as you said, it helps you think methodically when you come down to building a site. Now, those lines now, when you start to add in CSS grid, Flexbox, getting rid of the sort of the normal way of working they used to have years ago. Now everything is Flex. Moving on to a class-based system. Moving over to, maybe removing widgets and having a more componentized way of working. Then what's that going to do to the typical, persona that people have of an Elementor user, which is, as Atif says, people that just want to use drag and drop. Are we kind of then just getting to the point of, Elementor are playing catch-up to what Bricks is doing? And I say Bricks because that's the one I'm most familiar with. I mean, there's platforms like Green Shift and things like that do similar kinds of things and, generate blocks and so on. But you are now, the argument for using Elementor being simple is kind of becoming less the case as they're moving more into what you would consider to be proper web design tools and technologies like CSS Grid, Flexbox, class-based, global classes and things like that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this kind of makes it awkward, or do you think, for me, Element are not quite sure where they want to be?
No, I feel like they are now, I think they've got wider range. So when Bricks came out, a lot of people were saying, Bricks is more for, the coders, the developers, the people that want to have, full-on control. Elementor is for the people who are basic, who can't understand code, even though you can still use code or whatever. So if you think of Elementor was for the drag and droppers, and they could do some coding and whatever as well, but it was mainly for the drag and droppers. Bearing in mind, though, that I think you can split Elementor into even basic, where they just want to drag the post widget. These aren't even the loop grid people. These are just the post widget, the basic widgets. Then you have the Elementor people who are happy to use the loop grids and build their templates. They're happy to do all of that. They don't want to just buy a theme and then just swap the logo and colors out. They're happy to do a bit more. Now you're going to have a level up whereby you don't just want to do your loop grids and all of that and a bit of CSS coding. Now you're going to be thinking about scaling up your designs. with the classes and all of that, and eventually the components I'm sure we'll talk about. So now they're stepping into the area that bricks were dominating in. Now that doesn't mean they are comparable, but I think it means that as an Elementor user, I could build a website that's very advanced, but if I'm now handing that website over to a client who is a technophobe, they could be okay with it as well. Whereas I've always felt, and I know some people would disagree with me on this, I've always felt that when I built a bricks website for a client, they had to have a maintenance plan with me. I was never comfortable with giving a client a bricks website because I felt they will break it. There's too much there for them to get wrong. Click on a class, change the style without realizing it affected left, right, whatever center. Whereas with Elementor, you know, if you built a basic website, you could give it to them an hour handover to train them up and away they go. But I think now we're going to have wider range. The danger, though, is that you could build a website for a client, start using the classes, give it back to the client, and they could then end up breaking it. So you're going to have to assess the skills of your client. Are you going to be maintaining the website, and how far do you want to go? Because I know from experience that if you use LoopGrid, clients can break it because they think, oh, I'll just click edit, and they don't realize that by you modifying that template, that was the same template for your posts, for maybe your products or something else. And now everything's gone duk, 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 duk. And then they come running back to you. So I think we've got wider range.
But I would argue the point that is it our responsibility as web designers working with clients to either A, restrict them to what they can and can't use, or B, just give them full access and then whatever. Because if you kind of consider it to like you buy a car, right? You've got your car outside, you've got a massive engine in there, you've got all the sort of the moving parts. But what we do is we occasionally put water in there, we might check the oil level, and we put petrol or diesel in, right? We know we could probably get our hands in and start fiddling, but we don't because we don't know enough about it. But if we did and we cocked it up, we would know that either we've got to fix it ourselves or we've got to pay someone to fix it. Well, a website is no different, really. It's okay. It doesn't have physical moving parts. But it is still one of those things where if you've got a client that gets in there and they start messing around with things that they really shouldn't, is that on you or is that on them? And should we sort of say, well, I'm not going to use this tool over this tool? Because I hear the argument a lot about Elementor is easier for end users than bricks is. I would probably say when that was the case with before the container CSS grid and Flexbox and stuff become the standard, then yes, it was easier to kind of get your head around because it was more like a spreadsheet. Do you know what I mean? You didn't have to worry about directions and reversing and columns and rows and reverse columns and reverse rows and sort of horizontal, vertical, central, and all those kind of positioning elements that we have. You look at the two side by side. That's like looking at your typical engine from 1960 to your engine now, which is literally you can't put your hand inside there because it fills the entire engine bay and there's sensors everywhere. You know, at what point do we kind of draw the line and say, you can have access to it if you want to, but it's not my responsibility if you fiddle and break?
So this is where, and I don't know if Elementor are going to be doing this. So when the containers and LoopGrid all came out, there was a setting in the features that you could either deactivate or deactivate, and then it became native. I strongly think that Elementor need to ensure that in the features you can either activate or deactivate things like the classes, components, and stuff like that. There'll always be an urge in a couple of years' time to make it native from the get-go. I think that needs to be always a feature that you can either have or not have. Because I completely agree with you that you should assess the needs and the skill sets of your clients, because you want to make sure they don't break anything, even though you can make a lot of money out of them when they do break something. But I think it needs to be a feature, a setting, because I just think it's a majority of Elementor users, and I don't mean to disrespect anyone, because this is based on what I see in the forums and people contacting me, and I'm not going to swear here, don't know a lot beyond drag and dropping. They are what I call online PowerPoint users. They just want to drag it on and then they're Canva users. Just drag it, change the word, and that's it. You just have to say the word CSS and they fall off their chair. So I feel like there may need to be some control over what you can enable or not.
I would think a good analogy of this kind of thing is that where do we draw the line? I mean, give you an example. If you're in the UK and you've ever heard of a thing called night nurse, right? It's a medicine that helps you sleep, right? And on the back of the box and everything else, it says, caution, may cause drowsiness. Not to be funny, but I friggin' hope so, because that's the reason why you buy it, is to help you fall asleep. And is this the problem we've got? Is that we are catering to the lowest common denominator, and we're trying to scale everything from that point backwards to cover every eventuality. Whereas the fact of the matter is, if you're stupid enough to stick your hand in a moving engine, that's called, what can I say? Natural selection. So if you're the kind of person that just wants to stick your hand in the middle of your website and start pulling bits out and going, oh shit, my website doesn't work anymore, that's your problem. You are the one that's messed it up. Now you can come back to me and I will charge you to fix it. But that's no different to any other business out there. And I think, we're of a slightly older generation, Imran, I think you would agree, that we look at these things and you think, geez, when I was a kid, you didn't have all these little protective barriers in the way of everything. It's like, that's the reason we survived and we still survive today, is because we learnt the bloody hard way what to do and what not to do. Whereas now everybody is so wrapped up in cotton wool and then sort of like have bubble wrap put around it as well and little sort of spikes so no one can get near them, that they're sort of protected from the realities of the world. And when you kind of get this point of just like a website, you should never give access to your website to your client. Why? Give them access. If they balls it up, that's on them. That's not on me.
That's how we learned. That's how you got to go through the pitfalls and the defeats and the bad moments. You got to experience that to learn from it. But these days, clients, if you don't pre-warn them about what not to touch and they go and touch something, they don't care that they did it. They always feel like they've got to shove the blame back at you, kind of thing. But I hope, just going back to version 4 though, again, like the site planner and everything, I'm optimistic, and obviously it's going to be drip fed to us in stages. We're going to get this. That's going to be a funny feeling, I think. It's like you're gonna. What I don't want is they give us something, we learn it, and then they give us something else, and we now have to relearn what we learned before. And then they give us something else, and we have to relearn, because that's a lot of bloody tutorials to record. Not that we mind recording, but that's just going to be like, oh my God, I thought I knew it, but I don't know it. But it is going to be drip fed to us. But I'm quietly optimistic. I mean, there was one thing they showed. Again, I was not expecting it, which was accessibility. Which looked like a widget or something. I don't know if it's a setting or something that will be enabled. I talk about it in my video today about what I thought it might do. That was different. And I don't know if any other page builder really does that. I don't know. Someone might jump in the comments and tell me. But I thought that was, again, if they do it right and they have thought about it, because I think they know that if they don't get it right, there will be some that will jump on them. There are some companies out there that post regularly about which page builder's doing well or not. So I hope they thought about it. But I don't want to say web accessibility is everything, because we all have our opinions over it, over do we have to cover off every single thing? Because I don't think you can. It's very easy to say, by doing color contrast, you've now made it easier, but you're assuming that everyone with color contrast will find what we've just done easier. There's always going to be someone somewhere that has an issue with what you build and how you present. But if they're doing something to cater for people with some form of impairment, I think that's a good thing. But until we see it, we don't. Can I just say one thing, though?
Yeah. Sure.
Sorry, I was going to say that even though we saw these teasers in version 4, I would have liked to have seen it in action. It's all good and well just to show us screenshots, but what I'm worried about is, what if that is all it is? It is literally just a screenshot from Canva. Is it actually built yet? I'm sure it is, but I would have liked to have seen, some...
The results of it and everything.
Here's a page and click. That would have been
Yeah.
nice, just so that we could go, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It would have been nice to have seen an actual working prototype, but that isn't always the case, as we know, with lots of businesses where they don't necessarily show an actual working prototype. They just talk about it. Look, I mean, I'm hopeful of this actually coming out. I could leave it there, but coming out and it's a working thing. I see what you mean about the accessibility. Again, it's one of those things. I just really wish that they would leave. Sometimes you leave the things to the companies and the businesses and things that know what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? It's like you put this accessibility thing in there, and again, like you say, I don't know what. I mean, I was doing something else at the time. I was kind of listening in the background. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But my first thought was, why? Unless you're going to keep, unless you're going to keep up to date with all the accessibility things, is it just a checkbox exercise that says we now include an accessibility checker that checks the basic things, or is it using an API from something else that will check it and be kept up to date? The external service is actually being kept up to date. And you could say like, but if it does 50% of the accessibility, that's a good thing. It's like, but then there's also 50% you can miss out on. And as we know, with accessibility being such a hot topic and with the legal implications of that coming in and so on, if you rely upon something like that, and we already know that there's been a few companies that offer this as their dedicated service, and they don't catch everything. So can you easily become reliant upon something like that, and it's not actually giving you all the information? So you think you're being compliant, and the reality of it is you're missing some of the compliance out. Therefore, the implications that has. So I would just rather have a company that specializes in that specific service doing the job than relying upon my page builder.
Yeah.
The only way I can say it's like AI. The AI, as we know, one of the biggest fundamental issues with the AI in Elementor, and it could be the same in other tools, I don't use AI in other builder type tools, is that it has no history. It doesn't know what you said the last time. Whatever you asked the first time, you can ask something else, and it's completely oblivious to that first question. And that in itself makes it, for me, semi-redundant, because one of the beauties of having an AI is the conversational element, where you can push it in the direction that you want it to go if it's not there to start off with. So you can mold it a little bit better. You know this better than anyone from where you've been using, ChatGPT and Claude and stuff like that to be able to, come with code snippets and create different things like that. You and Mark and so on, you do a lot of this. But imagine trying to do that where every single prompt you put in was a new prompt. It would be virtually impossible. You'd just literally be chasing your own tail. And I kind of feel that's what's happening with Elementor. That's what happened there. And are we going to see the same thing with the accessibility? It's going to be a half-implemented tick box exercise that says we've got this as a selling point.
No, I hope not. And I think that's probably why they're doing this drip feed approach. I just want to throw something out there, okay? And this is me being tongue-in-cheek now, but if someone ever said they were going to sue me because a website I built was not properly web accessible, could I counter-sue them for triggering trauma inside of me because they dared to sue me? Could I counter-sue them? Because I do feel like, going back to what you said, if I had a wish list of what I would like to see come out first, we're going to get some cosmetic changes because they showed us some of the styling and all of that. We're going to get that. I'd rather have the classes and the components and all of that. And if the accessibility didn't come on until the end of the year as the last thing they add on, I'll be happy with that. Because I feel like get the stuff that we want first. And then if there's still a desire or an appetite to do the accessibility, however you're going to deliver it, then do that. But it's not... that's why I was surprised. Because it was the first thing they showed when they were talking about, the features. I was like, oh, where's this come from? I don't even think it was on the roadmap. I know I have no idea. I know we've had every time they've done an update, there's been a little bit of improvement in some form or the other with ARIA labels or something. yeah, I don't think it was ever like a fully fledged out thing they were going to release out. But like I said, if they get it right, it'd be good.
I mean, Dave's raised a good point. The screenshots show it's just going to be an accessibility over like Pogo or Accessibility. Doesn't actually tell you what to fix. So I would question, what's the point?
Yeah.
Is there really? Hey, Brian.
Yeah. But yeah, going back onto that, but does it need to tell you what to fix? That's why you have dedicated tools, a bit like the site planner. You get the basic that will do something, but if you want something full blown that's now going to spell it all out for you and allow you to have better machine learning, then you need to go and invest in a better tool. So, Accessibility and all of this equalized digital, all of that. If you want a proper audit of your website, go and pay to learn or get that done, I think.
Which, like I say, then takes me back to why invest the time, effort, and man hours into it when there's already plugins that'll do exactly the same thing for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there is always that danger that just because like someone's written a blog about all the page builders and who is web accessible or not, because that came out before Christmas time or whatever. That's the thing I don't want anyone to do, where they go, right, I now want to win the game, I want to win the race, so I want to tick the box to say we've enabled it. But that's why if you are going to do it, but don't push it later on. So everything they showed us that's coming, make it the last thing. Because if you were to get a room of Elementor designers or pay whoever together, and you said, here's the list of things, what order do you want them in? I am pretty sure 1% will say we need the accessibility. I think the rest will say push it to the end, because there's plugins. Because there's loads of free plugins you can add on if you really want, right? If you want it right now to do all that. So it's not like it's something we don't have. Whereas classes and components, I don't think there's any plugin out there that it builds that to integrate into Elementor without loads of tons of coding. So base it on need. What do we really want? Yeah,
I mean, if you kind of consider, if that's what it's doing, is like an overlay and giving you some really foundational basic feedback on the site, you can get exactly the same thing by literally putting that URL through some online services for free. If you want that to sort of get a AAA standard, then there's a lot more work involved. But if all you want to do is find out how far off from accessibility am I, or accessible am I, there's lots of services. And again, that's more code being added to the editor. Can you enable and disable it? Does it remove it completely? What are the implications for that? Because people already say about Elementor being slow to load in and stuff like that. So I don't know. Brian, software companies the size of Elementor, they'll be subject to EU's new rules hitting in June, so they're probably just trying to get ahead of it to look compliant. Yeah, more than likely. Go back. It's that box ticking exercise to say, look at us in the same way as like Imran said you're on the talk about the what can I say, supporting WordCamps and so on. So anyway, we'll digress from what we were talking about. Yes, so to kind of round up then, I think, before we sort of say, if anybody's got any questions, by all means now do it. Just put a hashtag Q in the sort of comment section, and we'll do our best to answer them. But your takeaway then, apart from cautiously optimistic, what one feature that they've shown are you actually excited about? I don't think I know the answer, but I thought I'd put it out there anyway.
It's actually not the global classes.
It's Notes version 2, isn't it?
Atomic. God no. It's the remember, Paul, we got ourselves in a lot of trouble and noise when we first discussed notes when we first went to town on that. It's actually the atomic components. It's the potential to be able to take, rather than me using the pricing widget or the image box or even the CTA, it's being able to now construct my own, because bricks, components and all of that. I had a look at Elementor and I was like, no, we can't do it. We could do templates and a bit of CSS, but it's a bit of extra work. So for me, that's the most exciting bit. The fact that I could start to create my own like templates kind of thing, to lay out how I want and to do what I want. I think I'm more excited about that. Because even though global classes is great, I can create a rough class system with my CSS frameworks, the way I build. So I feel like I can close the door on that my own way. But components, I feel like that's a big thing for me.
Okay. I will say that for me, I'm not an Elementor user, as you know. I might go back every now and again and take a look at it. I know, shocker. It's a shock. I know. I get it. I get the shock in your face. But it would actually tempt me to go back and take a look to see how they've implemented it. And, you know, from my point of view, one of the key reasons that I kind of moved away from Elementor was take away the sort of like the code bloat and stuff like that. But it's just, I kind of felt when you move over to something like Bricks, which has that class-first design system and all the other kind of features there that mean that we can design faster, we can iterate faster, we can remove reliance upon third-party tools to do so many key important things. I can't see a reason to go back because it's like taking a step back. I mean, I know that I've had other people say the same thing. I think you said the same. It's like when you go back, you kind of feel a little bit sort of, how the heck do I do that? It all feels slow and clunky. And that's kind of what it feels like. So I'm looking forward to the class system.
Yeah, well, when I first started looking at Bricks, the things that stood out for me were the classes, the loop grid that you could do with post, because at this point we didn't have the loop grid. The fact it was containers, because at that time we were still stuck with section and columns. So just those three things, Flexbox, classes, and loop grid, just that on its own was like, wow, that is so much better. And we had the loop grid, we got the flex, etc. in Elementor. So the classes for me now starts to bring everything to a more comparable level as to what you get with Bricks. But like I said, they're not completely comparable. I mean, look, let's not digress, but no matter, all of these page builders, they all have their gaps and flaws, you know, like filters is the big one. You can use the inbuilt filters that Bricks give you, but most likely you're going to use Grid Builder. Elementor now have a taxonomy filter, but most likely you're going to use Grid Builder. And I feel like there's always going to be gaps, but if they can learn from what other tools have got right, or pretty damn well right, then Elementor can start welcoming back, potentially, some people that left Elementor when Bricks started gaining steam because of the classes, because there were features there that made things so much more efficient. And I'm not saying people are going to jump back from Bricks to Elementor. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I think, like a comment Lex made there, I'll take a second look at Elementor. Doesn't mean they'll stay, but they might now suddenly realize, you know what? I've got some clients where using Bricks is the best tool to use. But I've got some clients or some websites I want to build where actually I could just do it with Elementor. And I think that's where they wanted to get to, I think. And if they get it right, it will probably show that 2.5 years of seeing them lose some part of the market, because we can go on and on all day about 18 million websites, this, that. We can go on all about that. But they must have noticed that there were people leaving, were not renewing maybe their hosting. You know, you gain, but surely those that don't, you'll notice and you kind of go, well, why are they leaving? And I think if they can close that gap and actually get some people to come back, like you're saying you'll have a second look. Lex saying he'll have a second look, and I'm sure there'll be others. You might look at it and go, nah, still not convinced by it. But if it means that you're prepared to give it a go, I think that's what Elementor are looking for. I mean, I don't know, I'm assuming what they're looking for.
Well, I say I go back and take a look from history.
And then that's it.
No, because I mean, I'm in a different position to people that are using these tools for their day in, day out job. You know, I don't have to worry about from that point of view. So it's different. But historically, what I've seen is, and like if you take a look at, for example, the container, because I think the container is a good example. You know, they brought the container in, I think, after a lot of people complained about having no ability to use Flexbox. But when you consider the way that Bricks implements it in a much more logical fashion, we go sections, sections, containers, blocks, and divs. They're all still a div. They just have different sort of base values applied to them. that makes a lot more sense, and it allows your brain to compartmentalize. Not everything is called a container. Do you know what I mean? So like when you kind of get used to, you go like, okay, I want this to be so-and-so, so I need to use a div view because I don't need it full width. I'm going to set it up in a grid, blah, 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 blah. So maybe that's a bit more sort of intermediate knowledge, when you get accustomed to it. But I always kind of feel that Elementor do 80% and forget the 20% that makes it a tool that competes or actually beats its rivals. So yes, like you say, yes, they've got the massive market share, but they've also had the biggest budget. They've got a free version. There's a lot of reasons why. People like you, people like me, people like Ferdy, all those ones that have created content in the last 8 years, a lot of that content, there's probably thousands of videos out there, all basically free advertising to help people be able to build websites using that tool. The other, and then like I say, the millions they've probably spent on marketing going back about 3 years ago, all those things lead into why they're so big, and the other players, which I honestly don't think the likes of Bricks, and I think Thomas, and I'm speaking for him here, but I don't think he's got any interest in competing with the likes of Elementor. I honestly don't think that's what he's looking for. No. I think what he's looking to do is to build the best tool for people that know that's the kind of tool they want to use because it has modern web technologies built into it and removes that reliance upon other tools. And I still think Elementor have the mindset, and unfortunately maybe they've painted themselves into this corner by having such a massive third-party ecosystem around them that their reliance upon them means that it's very difficult for them to be able to implement some of those key features. So it falls back to those third-party plugins, which means that the 80% is enough as long as you're willing to invest in those additional tools. But then that brings another point of failure from my point of view. And it's like, I don't like those points of failure. This is why so many people complain about, I updated Elementor and it killed my site. And we see it every update, we see it and threads and threads and threads of it. Well, one of the biggest reasons there is not specifically Elementor. In some cases, that probably is the problem, the cause, the culprit. But the fact that they're reliant upon it and they don't necessarily talk to each other, or those plugins don't update in the same rate and blah, 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 we know these kinds of things, causes that problem. So it's the same thing as WordPress itself. It's its biggest benefit and its biggest problem. This is inherent with what's going on there. So this is the reason why I can't imagine me ever moving back to Elementor from an alternative. Bricks at the moment, that might change in a year or two. But right now, Elementor just doesn't bring anything to the table that I would need, that I can't do, and more with Bricks. So that's kind of how I feel it.
You touch on a really good point that I actually did forget, is that when we do eventually get all of this version 4, what is going to be the impact on a lot of third-party add-ons? I personally got nothing against third-party add-ons, but I do feel like a lot of them just give you lots of components and stuff that you don't actually need. They give you stuff and you go, oh, wow, that looks really good, so I'm going to go and load in a third-party add-on. But I always come back to, did you really, 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 really need that? Couldn't you have done it with a bit of CSS or something like that? So, it might be eventually over time, a lot of third-party add-ons, I'm not going to say will become redundant, but I think like their user base will probably start to shrink over time. But I don't think that should stop Elementor. If they want to talk and share with the third-party add-ons what they're doing and they try and get ready, they can do, but I would say don't wait. Because I remember there was a time when they were doing some updates and they said they're waiting for the add-ons to be ready for it. And I remember thinking, sod them. It sounds really blunt, and I know some people are going to go, but my website will break. I'm sorry, but if you're going to be one of those people that just uses Elementor free and 20 add-ons or whatever you add onto it, that's for you to manage the risk, right? It's like if I buy a car and I go and slap loads of add-ons onto the car. That's my problem when I drive down the road. If there's a problem with it, I added it on there. So I hope they don't wait for the third-party add-ons to catch up with them. I would rather they just get the stuff out there. But that's me being really blunt and nasty.
But I think history dictates, and we've had conversations with us ourselves and also people inside Elementor in the past, and we know that that's not going to be the case. Unfortunately, in a perfect world, that would be the case.
Wait.
But the reality of it is they've got too many there and too many websites reliant upon those additional tools. And again, you can argue the point then is like, well, is that Elementor's fault because they did rely upon those things, or because they didn't build those features in, so therefore they put themselves in a position where they have no choice now?
Well, I think it's I always felt for a long time that some of the features that a lot of the third-party add-ons used to do, I always used to think, why don't Elementor do that? Why do happy add-ons do this? Why don't they do it? Why do I have to go there just to get one extra little thing if you really wanted it? And I think it's just down to skills or time or what's on the radar or the roadmap, what's a priority. I'm not making a comparison to bricks, but you have bricks add-ons as well, and I would say that even Thomas, like with bricks, what if one day decide to do something even more amazing with bricks, and then they go, oh damn, we've got to make sure these add-ons that we know our users are using, Bricks Forge or whatever, we got to make sure they're ready for it, and they're not ready for it because they can't get the staff in to be ready for it, and then it holds you back, and then someone else does it and you go, oh, we could have got it done earlier. I'd hate to be in that scenario. I hate to be held back. It reminds me of when I worked in an office, like, right, we want to get X done. No, you can't do that because we've got to wait for that team to be ready. Why? I don't care about that team. I want to get my stuff out the door, but no, I have to wait for all of them to finish making their tea and get on with their stuff as well. So I'd hate to be in that situation. It's why I release so many videos, Paul. I'm like, right, got the video done, release.
just got to purge yourself. Just purge yourself of all those things.
It's called Senecot. That's the way you purge yourself.
and run a lot. So it's like just gravity takes its toll.
Yeah.
Oh man, we've taken a turn, and you can tell we've taken that turn.
Have.
Well, I think we'll probably best wrap it up there because we've just hit the hour mark, and like I said, I'm conscious of your time because you need to go and purge and create 50 tutorials by 4 o'clock. The usual things. But yeah, so I think we'll kind of wrap it up by saying that we're both probably cautiously optimistic about how this is going to sort of pan out, and we're also looking forward to seeing how they implement the class-based system, if components is something they talk about and move forward with, and let's see where it goes. But I'm going to wrap things up there. Imran, how can people find out about you, and if they want to sort of take a look at your new course and everything, how can they find out all that info?
Yeah, jump over to learn.websquadron.co.uk or just do a search for Web Squadron in YouTube. You'll find our channel, and please spend the time to watch every single video I've ever released. Just book out some time and do it. But if you want to learn about Elementor CSS, you know where to find me.
Book out your time with the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And as I said to Paul earlier, I'm going to have to redo the Elementor course at some point in the year when we eventually have everything out. So, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying nothing. But thank you for joining in today. It's always a pleasure to sort of have these conversations. We've been, I think, very, very polite today. We haven't put anybody over the coals, the hot coals. We've been good. Go on.
I think it's because we haven't actually seen... Because we haven't got hands-on of it yet. Once we get it, we might go, oh no, this class system, I clicked here and... So, yeah. Early days.
Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. But I'm going to wrap things up there. Thanks again, everyone, for joining in. If anybody wants to check out any of my courses or become part of the WP Tuts Academy, you can just go to wptutsacademy.com. You can join up for free if you want to.
Waste of time.
Shut your face.
Don't go there.
We don't cover Elementor. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, yeah, so we will do this again soon, hopefully before they release the actual global classes in 2027. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Thanks for joining in again. And see you soon. Take care. Bye, guys.
Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.